BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Alicia McCarthy. Thanks for downloading the Yesterday in Parliament podcast for Monday the 22nd of January, where a health minister urged parents to make sure their children were vaccinated against measles. There's been a rise in cases in London and the West Midlands, and yesterday in Parliament, MPs were told the government had written to the parents of 3.5 million children to encourage them to take up both doses of the measles, mumps and rubella jab. Just a few short years ago, it seemed to have been consigned to the history books, part of a long list of Victorian childhood diseases. But now, measles is back.
NHS figures show almost 3.5 million children under the age of 16 are unprotected and at risk of catching this serious and preventable disease. It is so infectious, Mr. Speaker, that one infected child in a classroom can infect up to 9 other unvaccinated children, making it one of the most infectious diseases worldwide.
That's the Health Minister, Maria Caulfield, who said that while for most children measles was a mild illness, 1 in 5 who caught it ended up in hospital. She was in the Commons to answer a question from her Labour shadow, Preet Kaur Gill, who said since the UK was declared measles-free 5 years ago, vaccination rates had plummeted.
Now 1 in 5 children are not protected with 2 doses by the age of 5. Cases have also risen consistently in years and by 120% in the last year alone. So the warning signs could have been seen from space.
In recent weeks, there's been an alarming rise in cases in London and the West Midlands, and the UK Health Security Agency has declared a national incident, warning the disease is likely to spread unless vaccinations increase. Currently, just over 84% of youngsters in England have had both of their measles, mumps and rubella, or MMR, jabs, well below the 95% recommended by the World Health Organization. As to why rates were low, Maria Caulfield accepted there were concerns in some religious communities, but she said halal and non-pig-based vaccines were available. And then there was another group who hadn't been vaccinated.
We also undoing much of the damage for the Wakefield cohort of young adults born in between 1998 and 2004, when Dr. Andrew Wakefield, with his discredited paper on the risks of MMR, did put off a huge cohort of young people coming forward, and they too are eligible for vaccines right now to try and prevent the spread.
Daisy Cooper, a Lib Dem MP, reckoned there were lessons to be learnt from the COVID pandemic when volunteers had been recruited to tackle take-up hesitancy.
Will the Minister be working and supporting Directors of Public Health to recruit those community champions who can have those vital conversations so people can put their questions to people that they know and trust?
The Minister said that was happening, and those champions had fed back concerns among the Jewish and Muslim communities about the vaccines. But she repeated gelatin-free alternatives were readily available. A Conservative, Sir Desmond Swayne, had another idea.
Might vaccination rates benefit from a much more generous compensation scheme for the very small numbers of severe adverse reactions?
But Maria Caulfield didn't seem to think that was Sir Desmond's most helpful suggestion.
Part of the problem that we are seeing is this misleading information about the safety of vaccines. The measles vaccine is safe.
Countering misinformation was also on the minds of peers. Labour's Lord Harris felt there was an international problem with people undermining trust in medicines.
Is this something that the government has been complacent about? Perhaps because it is so many of their right-wing friends who support this particular nonsense.
For the government, Lord Evans rejected that outright, saying the NHS and Department of Health work together
to develop innovative and effective ways to tackle anti-vaccine messaging and limit misinformation.
A crossbench or independent peer, Lord Carlisle, suggested a tougher approach.
In Germany, children cannot attend schools if they have not had a measles vaccination. In France, Italy and some other countries, such vaccinations are compulsory. Will the government introduce such legislation here?
The Minister wasn't making any promises, but said he'd put that suggestion to the Health Department. The government says its attempts to boost take-up have seen a rise in vaccination rates in England of 10% compared to last year. But another Labour peer and Professor of Medicine, Lord Turnberg, questioned if everything really was being done.
I wonder whether the security agency has engaged with PR companies, whether they have used IT, whether they're using TikTok and various other things which I know nothing about, but which do seem to influence public opinion.
The minister reckoned part of the problem was that measles had slipped out of the collective memory. Parents and grandparents no longer talked about what he called this terrible, debilitating disease that could ruin lives, leaving children deaf or blind. That's it from us for now, but you can hear plenty more from today and yesterday in Parliament on BBC Sounds.